Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we are truly honored to have a wonderful group of alumni on the stage with us from the UCSF's Graduate Division. We're going to be having a career conversation. It is going to be moderated and it will be 45 minutes, and then we'll have Q&A afterwards. As again, I said, we are truly delighted to have a wonderful group of people on the stage. We're going to let them introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their career trajectories. And hopefully you guys will have some questions for us afterwards. But we do have a few prepared things for you all. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. And we'll see you after everything is over. We'll have more cocktails and food out back. Thanks.
Sorry, yeah. So hi everyone, welcome to this panel. I'm going to, I'll start off by introducing myself. So I'm the moderator today. My name is Yessica Gomez. I graduated from UCSF in 2023 from the Biophysics PhD program, and I'm currently an assistant professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry. And so I'm actually teaching faculty, but today I think we have a lot of examples today of other alums who work in industry in various capacities. So we'll just go from left to right. If you could say your name, your affiliation with UCSF, and your current career role.
Hey everyone, my name is Maru Jaime-Garza. I am currently a postdoc at Merck, so I have a little bit of the industry experience. I've been graduated for a year. I was in the biophysics group here under Dr. David Agard, so yeah.
I am Blair Gainous. I was a postdoc here at UCSF in the Cardiovascular Research Institute with Brian Black. About almost 4 years ago, I left Brian's lab to join a startup, Epic Bio. We're working to develop epigenetic editing therapies. I was there for about 3 years and more recently moved to Profluent Bio, which is an AI-driven protein design company where we're using large language models to design or develop improved genome editing tools.
Hi, everyone. Before starting my introduction, I'd like to thank UCSF, Luann, Dean Drake, and all of you for arranging this session. My name is Sujata Mathur. I'm an MD, and I completed my master's in epidemiology and biostatistics in 2022. Currently, I'm working as Director of Global Patient Safety Science at Revolution Medicine, which is a biotech company, and we are focusing on KRAS inhibitor and developing a molecule for solid tumor. My current role is to advance the patient care in the clinical trials.
Yeah, thanks UCSF for intro and Leanne and everybody for being in attendance. So I was a PhD student with Kayvon Shokat, finished up in 2013, and excuse me, actually stood in this room and presented my thesis, which was to develop a small molecule drug to potentially have a disease-modifying therapy for Parkinson's. That was in 2013, and then 10 years later, it was acquired and actually put into the clinic, and now is in the clinic with AbbVie to be a disease-modifying, potential disease-modifying therapy for Parkinson's. So I kind of got to do the full circle with that first company, and then I just actually this year founded another company, and we just finished licensing technology from UCSF from the Shokat lab also to develop other drugs for CNS diseases. So really excited to be here, and I can only say that UCSF is an incredible place, and I think, if you guys are interested in entrepreneurship, this is really one of the best places in the entire world to be, so.
Yeah, so I think you started alluding to that, but our first question to start us off is, how did your choices and your journey at UCSF shape where you ended up today? So I think you've alluded to that already. I don't know what everyone else wants to say about it, or if you'd like to expand first.
Sure. Yeah. No. I think, it's just the culture of discovery here and translation to human health is really strong, and that was what made me choose UCSF. Really, because I felt like other graduate programs were much more focused on basic biology, which I think is really critical. But I was really interested in translating discoveries into patients, and so there was a lot of resources at UCSF, like these different classes. We did that idea IPO class. Now they have the global entrepreneurship class you can take to have discussions with current entrepreneurs and people who founded companies, et cetera. And so a lot of those different resources, were really put in front of me, and so I kind of leveraged them to do that. And there's different opportunities that came up when we ended up patenting the work, where we had opportunities to license the technology out to other companies or to start our own company. And Kayvon and I decided to kind of just go it ourselves and literally did a friends and family round and then started the company based on that. And again, it was really leveraging all the resources here and the strong support of UCSF and the scientists here to do that, and allowed me to kind of be that, like, one of those early scientists founders, where I feel like back when I first started Mindakainen, there weren't a lot of people who were scientist founders. Typically, VCs would make you put in some gray-haired person from big pharma to come in and kind of be the adult in the room. And so it was really nice that I was able to get that opportunity and then kind of leverage that. Now there's a much larger sort of biotech-led or founder-led biotech network going on. But when we first did that, it was really through the network at UCSF that allowed me to do that. So,
I kind of echo what Nick said just now. For me, I came from a clinical background, and I use this opportunity at UCSF because here, no one imposes any course on you. So you can customize your degree by yourself. So I chose those courses which could integrate my clinical knowledge with my coursework of epibiostat, and that's how I learned. So in my clinical practice, I was not knowing how to run a clinical trial, but then I chose those courses which helped me to learn that, and now I can design a clinical trial, which I'm doing right now in my current role. I can do the operationalization part of that. I can slice the data as the way I want to get the result. And then I know what that result means to me and how can I use that. Other than that, in UCSF, I also learned that not only the technical skill which makes the difference, you need to have strong communication skill as well when you are in the industry. So you need to work on that as well. You need to create connections. You need to talk to people. And for that, you need to have a good communication skill. So hone on your technical as well as communication skills both at the same time.
I guess for me, I didn't really come to UCSF with a specific goal in mind of going into industry. I really, after my PhD, just wanted to gain some new skills, further my training as a scientist, and definitely being at UCSF gave me a great opportunity to do that. Got to work with some really great scientists, network with people, and that proved invaluable later on. So just, the resources that you have here, both in terms of people and, technologies, and that's probably the main benefit that I got of being here.
I think when I was here, I did more the basic research type of thing. And when I was finishing my PhD, I really wanted to interact with more people. UCSF allowed me to interact with everybody around my floor. We would sit together at lunch and chat, and I think I left with really happy memories about the social aspects of science. So when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I was like, I want to be able to keep that alive and make my science be together with other people. And so now in my role, I often have to work with other people and try to convince other people to get on my team and work on my project. And I'm working on science that is actually more translational than it was while I was here, which is really cool. So I learned all of my basic science and being really rigorous and all of that here at UCSF, and also the importance of a good team and having, when someone presents their science to you, you're like, you're the person I want to be my chemist. And you can then work towards trying to get that help that you need. So I think UCSF pointed me in all the right directions in terms of science and people. And I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you all for sharing about the networking and communication aspects in addition to the technical stuff. Before we move on to the next question, I just wanted to show hands from the audience. How many of you are postdocs? Okay. Thank you. And how many of you are graduate students? Okay, that's a pretty even split. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to get a sense of what kind of feedback and advice you all are looking for. I think we've started to touch on this already with some of your answers, but what are some of the unexpected lessons that you all learned, not just at UCSF, but since moving on as well?
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started with that. Unexpected lessons. There's been a lot. So I think when I was here, I got to focus on the science, and it was really like a one-way, get the science done, everyone's happy. And in industry, there's so many players, right? So like the stakeholders really matter, and like communicating the right way, like who you CC matters in an email. And I think I didn't expect to grow so quickly in that regard. And at first it was like me being confused, like, why are people offended? And it's like, oh, you didn't CC them. So like little things really matter. And I think being aware of those even now would be really helpful for everyone, because then you show up into industry and you start learning kind of the methods and like how things move forward and how best to coordinate people together. And so I didn't expect to learn so quickly about like the politics of situations. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, I guess as a grad student and postdoc, I really thought that the most important thing were your technical skills. But yeah, as I moved into industry, I found, as Maru was saying, it's really about working well with people and communicating with people, getting that buy-in for your ideas, getting the right people to work on your team. Something else I was going to add to that. Yeah, I think that was the main lesson for me, and a real opportunity to grow as I moved into industry. I think. Oh yeah. So as a postdoc, I know maybe your experience is different as a grad student, but for me personally, like I didn't have a lot of interaction with people outside of my lab or my institute, and so didn't really have a lot of collaborations, and you're like doing everything on your own as a postdoc. So yeah, just having that opportunity to work closely with other people and draw on their expertise, and yeah, get other people to help you move your projects forward has been something I've really enjoyed about industry compared to my postdoc.
For me, the biggest lesson or skill was you should be adaptable to whatever situation come in. You might have a plan in your mind, but that things doesn't go like that. So whatever situation come, take it as a learning opportunity. You might join a project, and that project might not go on. You might have to move to a different project, and then you will be like, oh, I didn't join for this project, but then I'm not sufficiently technically expertised in this another project, and then you'll have a setback. So just have a adaptable mindset, because there is only one thing which is constant, and that is a change.
Yeah, these are all really good points. I was trying to think about what was the most unexpected lesson. I think, all of these are good lessons. I think probably the hardest one to learn is hiring and managing team, because I think it's just it's all of the things that you guys said. It's all about communication and alignment and convincing people that they want to work on this project. But it's also identifying when things are not going right. And luckily I had a good mentor for my postdoc, Mark Levine, who just started a huge company. He was obviously a very good communicator, and he taught me, with managing people, you want to be what's called, like, he called it assertive. You don't want to be like submissive, where you're basically letting your people who you're working with kind of do whatever they want, because then they won't really respect you. But you also don't want to be overbearing and basically come down on them and constantly backbiting and sort of always basically pushing back on what they're trying to do or trying to control them too much. You want to be assertive, where you basically set out guardrails and you say, here's like what we're trying to get done, and here's what we're trying to achieve within these certain time frames, and basically give them the freedom to make those decisions. but also let them know that there's consequences if you don't reach those decision points, and but you set that up very clearly in advance so that there's no confusion about what the goals are. And then the hardest part is actually firing people if they're not performing and not working well. And it's really critical to a company. And that was one of the things that was really hard for me to learn, because I wanted, I came into it, I was like, I want everyone to love me, and I want to be like well-liked, and everyone, in academia, nobody ever gets fired, right? You're a grad student, like, you make a ton of mistakes, that's fine. That's where you're supposed to make mistakes, but you don't get fired, right? And so when you start a company, you realize you're like, oh my God, this person is, there's one story I always tell about this, like this person I didn't want to let go of, but they would constantly leave all of the antibodies for the company out on the bench at room temperature. And it was like constantly happening, or like leave the freezer door open, and you're like I had to set a guardrail. I was like, if you do this again, this is a fireable offense. Like, you cannot do this. And ultimately we had to let that person go. But it actually made us also change, where we purchased then all of those like New England Biolab, -20 things you keep enzymes in, so you keep all of our antibodies in. So that way, if they did get left out, they wouldn't get ruined. So it was like a two-way learning experience. But I think managing people and like and learning how to hire people and decide on what are the criteria for hiring people and then how to manage them has been one of the most unexpected lessons and really one of the big challenges that I had to learn.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you, everyone. So I'm hearing a lot of like professionalism, working with teams, managing teams, all different skills that you've developed along the way that maybe you weren't immediately thinking about. Maybe we can shift to what are some of the people that helped you along the way? Who are the mentors that got you to where you are today, and how did you develop relationships with those people?
Yeah, I think mentors is really critical. I think, my PhD supervisor, Kayvon, has been a fantastic mentor. And I think, just this year, we went on an international trip together to Brazil to meet with investors and do these kind of things. So we're still really close. And he's a person who I always really respect his advice. But another really good mentor was someone who was deeply experienced in pharma. And they taught me something that was unexpected in another way. And because they'd been in pharma for many years, they were like 72 years old, they'd been CEO of a public biotech company. And I think one of the things at UCSF, you always want to be innovative, right? You're always trying to break boundaries and do new innovations. And so a lot of things we were doing at the company, we're always trying to be innovative and be different. And he said, stop trying to be different. You just want to do things in a way that people understand it and they can fit into their box of what you're doing. And that actually was a big thing. So it's like, if one aspect of what you're doing is very innovative, if you have a completely new modality or a new target, then make sure everything else just kind of checks the box and is not different, because it'll just make your life that much easier, right? If you're trying to make every single thing that you're doing different, then it's going to make people's heads explode, and they're not going to take the time to actually learn what you're doing. And so he's been a really great mentor and still someone I can pick up the phone and call, even though he's officially retired now. So yeah.
My mentors were Dr. Jeff Martin and Dan Kelly. Both are clinicians and now into epibiostat. So I was kind of influenced by how their career trajectory had been. Myself, I was also clinician, and I didn't have any idea how I'm going to apply the current knowledge which I'm acquiring to my existing one. So they helped me to do that. And our relationship blossomed because my approach was that I'll approach them with a curiosity to learn. I'll take their feedback very seriously. And then, because mentorship, I feel, is a two-way street. You have to show results as well. Then only they'll be interested in teaching you. So these are the tips which I followed, and I am still in contact with them. I'm taking feedback still from them, even though I'm not in academia. But this is a lifelong relationship with your mentors.
Yeah, I have to say that in terms of figuring out what I was going to do with my career, my PhD advisor wasn't particularly helpful. As I was nearing the end, I was like, so what do I do next? It's like, what do you mean, what do you do next? You go do a postdoc. But when I was a grad student, there was a postdoc in my lab who moved on to industry. I think he went to Genentech and then Celgene right next door, and now he's at Amgen. And he was really influential and helpful in kind of guiding me on that path toward industry, and gave me a lot of advice on what to look for, what sort of area of research to go into. And then actually someone who I met here at UCSF when I was a postdoc. This person was an assistant professor, ended up leaving and joined Epic, where I got my first job in industry. And so I guess that's just to highlight, like, you never know how you might reconnect with people you cross paths with here, and how they might influence your trajectory later on. Because when I knew this person at UCSF, I never really thought that we would end up working together. But then he kind of took a chance on me, hired me to build this team when I didn't maybe have exactly the right experience, and it ended up working out great. And it was bittersweet leaving that role, because I really didn't want to let him down, I guess, but I just had a really great opportunity to move on to the next thing, and we still have a good relationship. So yeah, I think just making and maintaining those good relationships with people you cross paths with, because they could come in handy in the future.
I think I've had a lot of mentors, and I feel extremely lucky for it. So even starting in undergrad, I had this like Greek professor who I would sit and have tea with, and he would just get me excited about science. And I think there's those mentors, and then there's mentors like my science or my PhD advisor, who was like very much a science advisor. It was like how to be the best scientist and how to be rigorous and how to give a good presentation. And people care about you in different ways. So like I think having different people on that spectrum where you can like, if you know you need someone to boost you up, you know who to go to. There are people that I'll go to, like cold emailed on or cold LinkedIn reached out, and they'll tell me about their experiences, and I'll be like, wow, I want your career. Like I want to be like you. And we might not have an ongoing relationship, but I now know that I have a place I want to go to. And I think similar to what Blair alluded to, my advisor doesn't know about what other careers exist outside of science, because science is everything to him. And I think that's so cool. But seeing that passion, I'm like, okay, from you, I'm going to learn how to be passionate about one thing. I just need to now do the work myself to find what areas I want to be passionate in. And so allow yourselves to, like, even if the person doesn't look like they're going to have useful advice, to just kind of try to learn as much as you can from people, because like they always have something to teach. And it could be someone at your level too, right? Or like someone that's not in grad school, or I don't know. I think mentors come in all shapes and sizes.
Thank you, Maru. I think I'm going to skip around a little bit just based off of what you said. If maybe everyone else could weigh in a little bit about what are their tips for networking, building connections, building relationships with mentors, specifically like how do you approach those people? How do you maintain a relationship with those people? I know, for example, Sujata, you said that mentorship is a two-way street, and I've heard from many of my mentors, especially as I've moved on from being a trainee, like it's important to take ownership of your mentor-mentee relationships, and really, ask for what you want out of the relationship. So I'm not sure how you all approach that. Whoever would like to start?
Yeah. For seeking mentorship from UCSF alums, I'll suggest look at the UCSF page at LinkedIn or at the UCSF alum portal. Look at the people who are working on different projects, see what excites you, what you are interested in, and seek out genuinely for the guidance, not for the job. Because if you say we want job, that is a different impression. Everyone is interested. All alums are ready to help you, but they can help you to learn and not to get a job. That is a negative impression in my understanding. If you directly reach out for a job, you'll get a job if you're good sound technically. If you know your stuff, you'll get a lot of jobs. We are in Bay Area. There are a lot of pharma companies, as I was talking to some of you here. So job is not a problem. Get yourself technically sound and show the curiosity of learning. I think that is the key for me, and I have followed the same.
I would say just show up. I think, a lot of people will reach out to me, and message on LinkedIn once or something, and I'll say, yeah, I'll try to make time. I'm just super busy. And then, it's the people who like see that, there's like an event going on or something else, and they show up and start talking to people. And those are the people I think who are the best at sort of networking. I think, it's like persistence and showing up, I think are two of the most important things for networking. And, go to these events. Like there's so many different events like on a weekly basis. There's actually, there's one thing called Founders Bay, like on LinkedIn. And it's this woman, actually, she was a scientist, and she like now made it her job to just like post about like women in biotech and all these different opportunities. And literally she puts together a schedule every week, and there's like literally 4 events every single day in like tech, biotech, all over the place. You can just go on this thing and just like show up at events and start talking to people. And then you'll start meeting VCs, you'll start meeting all these other people in biotech and all these other, people you can network with. And as these guys were saying, like find your kind of mentors there. Don't just ask them for a job, but say, hey, I want to learn how to do what you're doing. How did you get to this role? How did you get to this place? And it's like, you're not asking them for anything. You're just trying to learn from what they're doing, I think the hardest ones for me to respond to are like the ones where they're just like, oh yeah, can I get a job? Or can you like, introduce me to this other person that And I'm like, I don't know you. Like now I'm going to go to a person that I know and introduce someone that, I don't know and recommend them for something when they're not, that's going to make me look bad in the end. Right. But if we met in person and we discuss things, then that's a better way to kind of network. And so like you have to kind of consciously make that decision. Like just say one night a week, I'm going to go to like some random event that looks interesting and find out what that event looks like. And it's like, oh, it's all literally, there's actually like a bunch of, like I said, these different events each week. And it's like, oh, women in biotech or, whatever, like I just keep thinking about that, but there's specific events that can be tailored to what your expertise is. And then you go talk to people there. And that's the best way to think network and build your network. I was trying to look for another word, but my brain's not working too well right now.
I appreciate that a lot. And I think, so my partner convinces me to go to networking things. And I'm like, the word networking just doesn't feel good. But you put me in front of people and I have a great time. I love talking to people. I love hearing like what they do, what they have to say, how they do things. Like if somebody dropped me in a networking meeting, like once a day, I would be a very happy person. But because of the name networking, I can't make myself like think that I'm going to enjoy them before. So like you're saying, just like once a week, forcing yourself to be like, I'm going to do this and I'm just going to go. And then you don't have to like the mental barrier of getting yourself out the door to show up to these things kind of disappears. Because if you think about it as networking, sometimes it's harder to really get yourself out there. And you're really just meeting people and having fun. And everybody has such different experiences that like there's so much to talk about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I mean, I'm frankly not the best at networking. I don't go to a lot of these events, but again, just like being here at UCSF, you have a sort of built-in network of fellow grad students, postdocs from your lab, the lab next door. I remember when I was trying to figure out my next steps after UCSF, I was exploring some different options, and I would reach out to people who I went to grad school with. Maybe I didn't know them that well. They were in the lab down the hall. They were a couple of years ahead of me or below me. But I wanted to learn about what it was that they did, because it was something different from what I knew, which was just research in the lab. And pretty much every time, people were happy to take the time to chat, have a coffee, do a Zoom meeting. So yeah, just leveraging that. I think if you're not the most outgoing and not into networking events, yeah, you have to find other ways to leverage that.
One thing, you can actually find a lot of these events at UCSF too. There's always like events over across the street. And I don't know about you guys, but if someone's offering me free food, I'll go do whatever. And so in the yeah, no, never. Isn't I run the company now. I'm still like, guys, let's order some free lunch for us. It's gonna be great. But I would keep like a nice jacket in the lab, and then I would go sneak into these events when they're on campus and just like show up and be like, take some beers and eat all the food and stuff. But you end up talking with people, and you end up chatting, and maybe it's a professor, maybe it's someone else. And I think when you get people in like a social environment, you can end up making a much better connection. And so even like this last week, I was in London for this like giant Jefferies, it's like this investment conference. I ended up talking to like the VP of all neuroscience for like multiple large pharma companies. And these are people like I wanted to get in contact with. I happened to just be standing there having a beer with at this event. And I made this amazing connections that now we're setting up more meetings with these different people who I I hadn't been able to connect with, online. I didn't like cold reach out to them, but I like saw them, and now all of a sudden I'm connected with them, and we're gonna have more conversations. So it's really just like showing up and chatting with people around you, and it kind of breaks down the barriers, especially if they're like very famous or very high up. It can really break down those barriers.
Can I add one last thing on your comment, Blair? So the Office of Career Development here, I don't know if you all have gotten a chance to like reach out, but they're incredible. Like you'll sit with them and they'll talk you through like, okay, what are the things you want to do? I know these people, reach out. And then you ask them to meet other people. And so like, if you're not into meeting a lot of people at the same time or loud places or like a lot going on, that's a really good way to like network in a way that you feel you control a little bit more and might feel better.
Yeah, also really helpful for crafting your resume, interviewing tips, things like that. I got a lot of benefit from that when I was here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I also got a lot of benefit out of OCPD as a grad student. And also I know multiple people who keep like a nice jacket in their office just in case you need to sneak into like a nice free food networking event. It works. So yeah, we talked a little bit about skills. We talked a little bit about people. I think, I don't know how to phrase this. So kind of merge these two things. So how did you set yourself up for working in industry specifically while you were still at UCSF? So I'm sure, it could be people that you talked to or just choices that you made during your training.
I guess I'm the most recent person to join industry. And for me, it was just applying to a postdoc position. And I think the lab that I was in really helped, which is not what people like to hear, but I think that gave me a big leg up. So, people were like, oh, you're from this lab? Oh, okay. We're interested. And it's really sad that it works that way. But I think that gives you a big leg up in like meeting people. And then when you get in front of them, UCSF has trained us to be great speakers. So like once you actually are at the interview, I think you'll do great and you'll show like the skills you have and the connections you have. And like everybody at Thermo Fisher that works with like big microscopes is somehow related to UCSF. Bob Stroud has like people everywhere. Everywhere you go, you will meet someone that has been in Bob Stroud's lab. So like all of those connections are super meaningful. And I think they get you in the door in industry very easily.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, Blair. But just as we move forward, I think also highlighting how that would be different between like industry versus startup, which I think you're about to talk about. I don't know how that changes, but we'd love to hear.
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak directly to that. Again, like, I don't know that I did anything specifically to to set me up for making the career moves that I did, but certainly during my training, I came to learn that what really got me excited was building new tools, coming up with creative ways to answer the questions that you want to answer. And so being in kind of the early discovery phase of research where I've been working in like technology development, building these platforms to discover and improve on new tools just seemed like the right fit for me, is what I learned during my training. And so, yeah, I don't know if there's anything specific about UCSF, but again, I guess it just comes back to the people that I got to know here and the skills that I was able to learn and get exposure to while I was here.
For me, I was into industry prior to coming to UCSF as well. So to my role, there are two aspects. One is the clinical and second is the quantitative. Before coming to UCSF, the quantitative aspect was missing. And that's what I learned here. And now I have like a package with me for clinical as well as quantitative, and I am more efficiently using my skills in my current role.
I think I was just trying to think back to being in my PhD program and what would I leverage from that. I think the biggest thing I can think about was grants. And I think writing your own grants, is something that you'll use both in industry and in academia, right? Because if you run your own lab, you have to write your own grants. And if you go to industry, you have to write a lot of documents and to try to convince other people to want to work with you and work on your projects with you. And so when I was in the ShowCat lab, I wrote my own grants, and I got this funding from like Michael J. Fox Foundation, which I'm still literally working with, and we're going to get funded with a grant from them in the next 2 weeks, for my company still. And so, but part of that experience that I learned from UCSF was, how do you get a grant done? And you realize there's, because obviously everyone at UCSF is very good technically, you're good in the lab, you do robust science, obviously make sure your science is reproducible, do it N of 3, make sure all 3 times looks the same, et cetera. That's really important for industry. But the other part that's really important is like getting a signature, and obviously when you're making your slides last minute, you're like, I have a presentation on Monday. I'll be working on my slides Sunday night until like 10 p.m. and I'll present them the next day, right? That's fine for when it's just you. But if you have a grant deadline and you go to the office of UCSF and you say, guys, I got this grant, it's due tomorrow, I need to get the signature. They're like, oh no, this is a 3-month turnaround for this paper. And you're, no, but it's due tomorrow. They're like, well, you should have come to us 3 months ago. And so like that part of that process really taught me how to work in industry, right? Because you don't control the deadlines in industry. You don't control all these other groups of people. You have to manage working between all these different groups. And then you have to administer grants. You have to like figure out where the money went. Was it spent the way it was supposed to be spent? And so I think that's something that, you should take advantage of that, right? Like it's very cushy to be in a very, really well-funded lab and you don't have to worry about funding, but go out there and push yourself and get a grant. Go apply for a grant and try to bring some money in. I think you guys probably know this, but UCSF, I think, is the #1 recipient of NIH grants in the entire country, right? So you're starting from like, your university score is like already the top score you could possibly be to get a grant. So go write a grant and then administer it yourself and like learn and work through all that like political aspect. And that'll teach you a lot about those kind of skills you need to be able to push forward in industry and also, potentially for academia as well. So you got to get the best of both worlds doing that. And that will like teach you, essential skills across all aspects.
Okay, thank you. So a variety of things that you can try and do. Let's pivot a little as we near the end of the session. Whoever is comfortable speaking about this, can we just talk about what it's like for international scholars moving into industry?
For international scholars, the scenario is a little different. It requires a little more planning as compared to the domestic students because the international students need a work visa. So when you're applying for the jobs, you talk to HR or whosoever you are talking to that you'll need a sponsorship later on, maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line. Initially, when you finish your degree or you graduate, we all are in STEM program, right? So there is a 3 years of OPT, and we have a wonderful ISSO department at UCSF who'll help you out with everything. But this is also important that you figure out what you're going to do after 3 years of OPT. So speak with the HR, and usually the company sponsor. They have a team of attorneys and immigration team who'll help you out with everything, but get it clear beforehand. For international students or any other students, the chances of getting into the industry and getting the sponsorship are higher if you are highlighting your skills. So you need to brush up your resume and highlight what you can do for the company because you have to sell yourself at the end of the day. If you are able to sell yourself, then anyone will sponsor you. So only thing is you have to plan little in advance as compared to the domestic students.
And if people don't understand the OPT process, it's like 1 year of OPT that you apply to. It's a very simple application. And the Office of International Students is very helpful here. And then you apply for an extension because you're in a STEM field, and that's 2 more years after that. So it is a total of 3 years that you're allowed to work here. And I think in that time, you also get a chance to like have people meet you and be like, oh, I want to keep working with them and I want them to stay here. And then maybe it'll be easier for you to get that, a sponsor that will help. But yeah, if you have questions about that, I'm happy to talk about it later.
And you don't have a restriction to like work for one employer, or like you have to work minimum 20 hours per week, but you don't have a restriction that you can only work for one employer or something like that during the OPT. So you don't have to worry when you are in the OPT period.
I was just going to say, I would assume that sponsorship is more likely to come from a large company, right? I mean, I know where I've worked, it's just too complicated and expensive.
In my experience, sponsorship is easier when you are with a smaller company, because everyone want to work with larger companies, so they pick people. But small companies are usually like, we need good people and we are ready to do anything for them. So in my experience, it might be different, but my experience is smaller companies are more flexible and more ready to, sponsor the work visas.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with this from the other side. So we've both sponsored an O visa. We tried to do an H-1B visa, and we did OPT for someone who just recently was an undergrad from UCLA. And I think the only one that wasn't successful was the H-1B visa. That was really challenging. The O visa was actually a really talented postdoc out of UCSF, and we helped that person we sponsored them and helped them to do the O visa, and they were successfully awarded it. And yeah, so that was a really great opportunity. But I think going back to what you just said, like that person really had to sell themselves to us. It was like they had to be superlative, like this amazing person, which sucks. That shouldn't be the case, that you have to be better or something.
Yeah, because there are like expenses of around 10K for sponsoring one visa. So if they feel that you're worth it, then only they'll sponsor you.
Yeah, OPT is easier. I think OPT is a good opportunity because we helped that person to come work at Montara, or actually Maru, and they worked with us for about a year and a half, and then the company was acquired, so we actually helped them get another job, and then that company then sponsored them for further visa. So they were able to like kind of try before they buy. Like they went to work for the other company for about a year and a half, and then or a year, could show how valuable they were, and then the company said, okay, we really want to help you and sponsor you to get through this full process. So I think it's really about using that 3 years. And again, as Sujata said, it's not about like you're not like an indentured servant to go work for some company and you can't leave. Like you can switch around. Like they switched around. Like, go to a company, see if it works. If it's not a good fit, then leave, go to another company and try to get them to be really excited about you, and then they'll sponsor you all the way through. Because otherwise, if we've gotten some applications where they're like, the application comes in and they're like, you immediately need to sponsor me tomorrow. And it's like, I can't commit to doing that. I don't know you. I haven't worked with you before. So it's like you want to kind of get a chance to work with them first.
Yeah, usually the application opens in March for work visa authorization application registration. So if you start, say, in August or September, the employer will have chance to assess your work for like 6 months, and they'll be confident to sponsor it. So don't try to, join like in February or January and then say, sponsor me. No one's going to do that. So plan in advance.
And I guess with the OPT also, just keep up to date with the news because things change quickly.
Yeah, okay. Thank you all for your insight from both sides of the process. In our last couple of minutes before we open up to audience questions, if we could just go down the line and say briefly, if you knew then what you know now, would you still have gone into industry and why?
I just started. I think it's a very steep learning curve. But we were talking about this. It's as a postdoc, for me, it's a great opportunity to like learn by doing and learn fast, right? I feel like maybe Nick, in your experience, like you found a company, you're very, very, like there's a lot of people that are dependent on you very quickly. For me, like if I mess up, my career gets messed up. So it's really nice for me to be able to be like, okay, let me go out there and try and learn and I've just learned so much. Like I've talked to marketing people, commercial people. I've talked to like everyone around Merck, and I think I've learned a lot. So I wouldn't take that back. And I think no matter if I stay in big pharma, if I go to smaller companies, I think I now have a better idea of how the whole picture works together. And it's so cool that it does. Like just seeing how teams of scientists actually can create pharmaceuticals is insane. And the reproducibility of the data is incredible. And the tools you have, like we got this really fancy instrument that like one other company in the US has, and I get to just like play with it. So there are a lot of really, really cool parts about being in industry. It is very different science. You're following the science a little bit less because like was alluded to, sometimes you just have to pivot and it's more aggressive and you have less control over it. It feels less like it's your baby, but I think you develop a lot of skills. So overall, yeah, I'm happy I'm in industry.
I think if I knew then what I know now, I would have joined industry sooner. I mean, just like you were saying, you know, the resources that you have, the teams that you're able to work with, and especially being in a startup, like I still get to do really innovative stuff. And I mean, just to like counter what you were just saying, I do kind of feel like the projects are my baby because, you know, as I'm building up this team, you know, I've been given kind of a roadmap of what's the overall goal, but I'm able to, you know, design the project the way that I think is best to lead it. And so that's something that I've really enjoyed. And, you know, I feel like I've gotten to do that more in industry than I did as a postdoc. And I mean, I guess your mileage may vary depending on your advisor and how much freedom they give. But that's been my favorite part of working in industry. So yeah, I'm super happy.
I kind of echo what he said. My decision will not change, but I just want to highlight that the industry is very different from the academics, because there the life is very fast compared to here. There are strict deadlines, and which changes. The priorities changes. You have a deadline tomorrow and then something come up and then you have to keep it aside and then you have to work on something else. And initially when you move from, say, UCSF to industry, it could be overwhelming initially. But then when you look at the impact your work is creating on, for example, for me, the impact what my work is creating on patient care and in the real world in treating the pancreatic cancer patient who had a overall survival of 6 months with the first-line drug, and now we have the results where it is up to 12 months, giving back those 6 extra months to the patient. I think that is a very good feeling for me. So I'm happy where I am right now.
Yeah, I think I echo all that. If I knew then what I know now, I would definitely still want to go to industry. I think the biggest sort of difference is what Blair said, right? We're working with these like incredible team, and you're not just working on your own project. You're working on a project with a team, and everyone's on it together, and we're trying to all pull the same cart, and I think that's really incredible because it is your baby. It's all of your baby, and you can make that much more progress, right? It's not just you in the lab by yourself, and I think having this like a robust team behind that and actually able to work on it together is really incredible. And then I think another piece was I always wanted to be a professor. I was saying earlier I didn't make it as a UCSF professor, so I had to start a company instead. But I think one of the challenges with academia is that every let's say 4 or 5 years your group turns over, right? So you go through the process to train someone, and they come in and they're very new to science, let's say, as a PhD student, or maybe they've done some research before, and you kind of train them, and you get them to be this perfect student who now is able to really conduct great research, and then they leave, and you're like, oh man, you got to start from scratch again. So I think that's exciting for some professors for sure. They love that teaching aspect of it, but for me, I had this really amazing group of people, and we've been working together for 5 years, some of them 6 years, and then the company was acquired. And then we all just got together and said, let's do it again. And then we went back and started the next company. And now like 9 of 11 of the employees all came from the previous company. And so I don't have to go back and retrain them. So that like the VCs were more shocked by the amount of progress we made in the first month because they were expecting us to have to hire people and train them. We were in there like, yeah, let's just do the experiment. You could just, just do the plate layout and then get the experiments done. And we were getting in vivo experiments done within a month. They're like, how are you getting this done so quickly? It's like, yeah, because we have this amazing team. And I think that's something that if I had known how incredible it was to like bring a team together and all row the same boat, all, pull together and like it just you get so many more things accomplished. And the fact that people aren't going to turn over as quickly, it really, really strengthens like what you're going to get accomplished together. So I would definitely want to do that again. And I think that's been really, really joyful for us to be able to work together for so many years.
If I could just highlight one more thing that came to mind. And when you're working in academia, you work in this project for 3 to 5 to 6 years. At the end of the day, you get a paper out of it that a handful of people might read. But working on a project so I was at Epic Bio for 3 years. When I came to Epic, we didn't have pipettes. So we built the lab from scratch. By the time I left 3 years later, we were getting ready to file an IND for a new therapy. So just, the reward of seeing that your hard work is going to actually potentially help patients. I think that's something most people don't get being in academia.
For that, for all your insights so far. Thank you to all our speakers. We'll open it up now for audience questions.
I'll be here to repeat the question so that people online can hear.
Sounds good. First question in the front.
Well, so thanks for describing how networking and team group projects is different than the individualism that's more in academia. In addition to networking events, looking back, are there any activities or training things that you wish that you did because those skills would have helped you where you're at now, whether it's like a coding exercise or being in Toastmasters or some sort of like public speaking group or something else?
The question was, are there specific skills that you wish that you had gotten prior to getting your roles while you were at UCSF? Soft skills or hard skills?
I think I would have wanted to explore more, which sounds like contrary to what you would have expected. I think there's like all these cool business things around science that I would have loved to like just learn, like the classes that were talked about, or like, so I was part of Nucleate Bio for a little while, which combines like MBA students with PhD students, and they get to like create their own company, bring together like the business and the science. And just learning about how it works so early, I think would really prepare you for different career paths down the road in industry. So I think I would have done a little bit more of that type of exploration.
I did everything perfectly. No, I agree with that. Just learning more about industry and what the different options were. It was kind of a mad dash for me at the end as my time was up here. Like, I just had to find something. It worked out well. I was super happy with where I landed. But just spending more time figuring out the best path.
I think in the past I did perfectly everything fine, but now what I'm making sure is because in our industry the regulations change very periodically, so I try to keep my technical skills up to date, and I try to attend the conferences or the working groups kind of stuff regularly, like every fortnightly kind of thing.
I was just going to say, I was having trouble thinking about it because I think UCSF does a great job of preparing you. Like, I was in the CCB program, and for example, we had to give like a journal club talk every year in front of the whole class, and that kind of teaches you how to describe the science and start from like the 10,000 foot view and move down. So I think it's really just like, using all the resources at UCSF that the kind of your classes or, different programs will give you, I think can be really informative and help you with that. But yeah, I mean, something, if you want to help on public speaking, I'm sure there's other ways like Toastmasters and those other kind of programs you could probably do if you want more help on that. But I think UCSF does a great job of that.
At UCSF, we have, I think, both Toastmasters and also an improv group, if you're interested specifically in public speaking skills.
We have time for one more question.
Dave, sorry.
Do you get calls from headhunters, and do you learn from opportunities like this other company's doing this thing, we'd really like you to come work for us? Does that happen a lot, or do you sort of hold them off?
The question was, do you get calls from headhunters for specific projects and or jobs?
Yes, we do. I think we get 4 or 5 every week. And we have to stop them, saying that we're not looking for a change right now. We are in a happy place. So yeah, we do get that.
Got a lot more in 2001, but yeah, definitely. They'll find your LinkedIn, they'll find your personal email, they'll find your phone number, and sometimes it sounds interesting, and you take the call, just like you said, to hear about what other people are doing, or maybe it's a role that sounds exciting. But yeah, they're out there.
1 year in, I get a couple, not this many.
And I think a lot more comes from your network. So you work with someone, they join some other industry, they know you, they'll approach you whether you are interested in this position kind of stuff. So that is a lot. That is like 80% of the times.
It's a different kind of headhunter call.
It's horrible, yeah. I get so many, and they're so aggressive, and yeah, no. Sometimes I take, the calls like to listen, so I had to choose a headhunter firm recently, and it was really miserable. But I interviewed like 5 of them, and then I gave them all projects. I was like, I want to see how much you want this, and I made them go out and write and actually like propose candidates and like do all this work, and I was able to then figure out which group was actually going to like do a good job on it. But going back to your point about learning from headhunters, I don't think I learned from them very much, other than just. I don't know. Sometimes I learn like which candidates are available because they'll try to disguise a resume, and I'll be like, oh, now I know that person's available because I can deduce who it is, kind of thing. But no, usually they're just trying to get money, and it's pretty terrible.
I think that concludes our time. There will be more opportunity to network with almost everyone here on the panel. But Nick, we're going to let you go home since he flew in from the UK today, so he's probably exhausted. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. There are gifts for you all under your chairs as a token of our esteem from the Graduate Division, the Dean's Office, and the Graduate Division Alumni Association. Thank you all so much for joining us.